Let's say you have a VA disability rating for depression. Let's say that rating is 70%. So you have a 70% rating for major depressive disorder. But how did you get that rating for depression? Let's back this up a little bit and say you started with a 10% rating for tinnitus. Then you filed a secondary claim for depression. This is what that little arrow means. All right, now we're back on track. Depression secondary to tinnitus. So that's where we're at. But there's more. There's more things wrong with you, and you want to get a 100% rating, and you reviewed the rating criteria, and you don't meet the criteria for a 100% mental health rating out of the gate. Secondaries is the way we do this. It's called secondary VA claims, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to show you how to do it. If you haven't wrapped your head around secondary VA claims yet, it's okay. Join my bootcamp, links in the description, and then I have a playlist right here that shows lots of examples of secondary claims. Secondary VA claims are money, money, money. In order to win secondaries, you need to have something to hook it onto, right? Primary first, then secondary. So I showed you the tinnitus example. Here's more. Here's another example of secondaries. This little arrow here means secondary. So we have lumbosacral strain, and then we have a secondary for radiculopathy in the left for 10%. Attempted a right foot secondary. That didn't get service connected. Got radiculopathy in the right? So that's 10%. 10% in the right, 10% on the left. You also get the bilateral factor, so add on another like 2 or 3%. And then he tried a left foot. That didn't work. So once it's service connected, in this example right here, once it's service connected, you can file secondaries on top of secondaries. So depending on the strategy here, lumbosacral strain, service connected at 20. Radiculopathy in the left, that's service connected. Even though it's secondary to lumbosacral strain, it's service connected. Now you can hook on more secondaries to this. It all depends on, what you have in your body, what your strategy is, where you're trying to go, 100%, right? How you get there. If you need medical evidence, which you do, and you can't get it from your doctor, try this email address right here. My med team will hook it up for you and help you out. So there's an infinite amount of secondaries. You could have 100 of them. Here's another example. Total knee replacement, 30%. Secondary sleep apnea claim, 50%. Depressive disorder, secondary to knee replacement, 50%. Perfect. Secondary scar, 0%. Typical scar rating. And then secondary back condition. So it actually makes sense to, file a claim for your back secondary to your knee, but he didn't prove it, was missing the diagnosis or the nexus. But either way, backing up a little bit, a back condition is usually a low ball rating. So like the scar on the left knee, 0%. So we're not trying to win secondaries that pay 0%. We're trying to win secondaries that pay money, right? And get us up higher, get us 100%. If you haven't wrapped your head around secondary VA claims yet, it's okay. Join my bootcamp. Links in the description. So our working theory here is you have a 70% rating for depression. So here are 5 different claims that you could file, and we're going to start with migraines secondary to depression. This one can go either way. You could go migraines secondary to depression or depression secondary to migraines. Here's an example here. There are several injuries that can occur in active duty that might be linked to migraine headaches. And then you have mental health issues. So they go back and forth. You need to make sure you have a current diagnosis. You need to have the link. I have an email address. If you can't get your doctor to write you the Nexus link, Second Strata will help you out. And then you need to have the current symptoms. VA disability ratings for migraines. The rating part here, you have 0, 10, 30, and 50%. The rating part comes from the DBQ or the independent medical opinion. Again, important to have your doctor fill this out. If you don't have a doctor, Second Strata can help you out. So we're looking for this 50% rating down here. And it says, with very frequent, completely prostrating and prolonged attacks, productive of severe economic inadaptability. So this is a great secondary claim. You started with your tinnitus. Then you hooked on a 70% rating for depression, and then now you're hooking on a 50% rating for migraines. Now we're going to move on to sleep apnea secondary to depression. Another condition that can be filed secondary to depression. And then this one can go the other way as well. You could have sleep apnea secondary to depression or depression secondary to sleep apnea. There's a well-known correlation between mental illnesses and obstructive sleep apnea. VA ratings for sleep apnea are rated under diagnostic code 6847, and you could file this secondary to depression, and the ratings range between 0% and 100%. What we're going after here is the 50% rating. Most veterans don't meet the criteria for 100%, but if you do, by all means, go for it. That's a nice 100% rating right there. But if you are diagnosed with sleep apnea and you get prescribed a CPAP machine, that's a 50% rating, and that's what we're talking about here. All right, so let's see what this would look like. You go highest rating first. We have 70% for depression, and then 50% for migraines, and then 50% for sleep apnea. And then you add the lowest run first, which is our anchor point, 10% for tinnitus. And then that would get us to 94%, rounded down to 90. Now we're going to pivot to another body part: migraines, neurological, sleep apnea, respiratory, GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. We're going to move that secondary to depression. Medical research supports a connection between GERD and depression. Many veterans with GERD, aka acid reflux, especially those who are diagnosed long after leaving the military, are eligible under the law for GERD secondary to depression. One example is if you're taking SSRIs to help manage your symptoms of depression. They may be causing side effects from those SSRI medications, which could lead to digestive system problems. If that's the case, veterans can service connect GERD as a secondary condition to depression. What is the VA rating for GERD secondary to depression? So GERD has 3 ratings: 10%, 30%, 60%, depending on frequency, severity, and duration of your symptoms. GERD is typically rated analogous to hiatal hernia, and it's diagnostic code 7346. And in this case, the average rating is a 30% rating, so we'll talk about that one. GERD with persistently recurrent epigastric distress with dysphagia, pyrosis, and regurgitation, accompanied by substernal or arm or shoulder pain, productive of considerable impairment of health. 30% rating for GERD. Now, how about we go IBS secondary to depression? Medical research points to a connection between irritable bowel syndrome and depression. If you're interested in reading a decision where a veteran won his claim, you should read this BVA decision from 2016 where a veteran was granted secondary service connection for IBS, which was proximately due to or the result of medication side effects taken to manage symptoms of other service-connected disabilities. This one is called the intermediate step. It's the intermediate step between depression and IBS. It's the meds in between. That's the intermediate step. And then you can look at this BVA case decision docket number. What is the VA rating for IBS secondary to depression? IBS is a digestive system issue. It's rated under diagnostic code 7319, irritable colon syndrome. There's 3 ratings available, and the most common one that I see and the one that we're going for is a 30% rating. The criteria for a 30% rating for IBS secondary to depression is severe diarrhea or alternating diarrhea and constipation with constant abdominal distress. Now we're at 100%, but while we're at it, how about we do erectile dysfunction, or for the ladies, female arousal disorder secondary to depression. This is going to be special monthly compensation K. This is the kicker I was talking about. Get a 0% rating for it, but it's special monthly compensation. It kind of sits outside of the combined ratings table. But whatever, it's another $120. If you can file all this stuff together, keep it straight, not too many claims, got the proof. You need medical evidence, right? Secondaries, any claims. If you need medical evidence, which you do, and you can't get it from your doctor, try this email address right here. My med team will hook it up for you and help you out. Let's back up a little bit. Let's say you got denied for something and you want to appeal it. You have lots of different options. You could do it yourself, but you know what? You may be over it. You may want to just lawyer up. If that's the case, another option is check out the sponsor of today's video, Hill and Ponton. This is what they do. VA disability lawyers get involved when you're in the appeals process. And then another thing, just another pivot, part of the PACT Act is the Camp Lejeune water contamination. Hill and Ponton is also taking those cases as well. If you're at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1987 for more than 30 days and you're a human being, there's a federal court case and you could sue them.